Hey everyone, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to knit in a 5-stitch wide sucker for the tentacle shawl. Just like before, we're using worsted weight yarn. Our yellow side is our F side, our orange side is our B side. We're using US size 6 circular knitting needles, and I've already knitted in the first 5 stitches as directed in the pattern before beginning the first 5-stitch wide sucker. I'm going to start with the bottom row, of course, and we start with an F stitch. We begin by taking our F strand, doing 1 yarn over, and then a second yarn over, and then knitting into that F stitch. So when you're done, you'll have 3 loops of F-colored yarn on your knitting needle. And we'll move both strands to the front, like usual, and purl in the usual way. And then we'll repeat that a total of 5 times. So, we loop over once, twice, and knit. Both strands to the front, purl, both to the back, yarn over, knit, purl, both to the back, yarn over, knit, and then one last time, we yarn over, knit, and purl. That's how you do your bottom row for the for the 5-stitch wide sucker, and then you simply double knit to the end in the usual fashion. I'm going to pause the video here while I knit to the end, and then get back to where we'll pick up doing middle 1 row. Hey everyone, I've just finished knitting to the end of the F side, and then knitted 17 stitches in as directed by the pattern on the B side. So now we're ready to begin the middle 1 row of the 5-stitch wide sucker. And this maneuver is going to require a cabling needle. Personally, my preferred cabling needle of a sort for this maneuver is a bobby pin. It holds onto the stitches very nicely. There's very little danger of them falling off of it, and it works well for holding on to those stitches while we work our intermediate rows. So, just as the pattern indicates, our first step is going to be to slip this first stitch of these 3 onto our cabling needle, which I do like that. But on our little bobby pin cabling needle, we do that, we simply drop these 2 stitches. We were only using them for their length, and now we have that. Holding that to the back, we knit the next stitch. Then bringing it to the front, keeping it out of the way. We slip that next stitch onto our bobby pin / cabling needle, and we drop the other 2 stitches. Keep that to the back, knit into the next stitch, slip the first of these 3 stitches onto the cabling needle, drop the other 2, and knit. Slip the next stitch onto the cabling needle, drop the other 2 F stitches, and knit. And then finally, at the beginning of this last stretch of 3 loops all together, F color loops all together, slip it onto the cabling needle, drop the other 2 loops, and knit. So, if everything's gone well, you should have 6 B strands alongside each other, and 5 long funky stitches on your cabling needle together. On the back side where you can hold them out of the way, then you simply double knit to the end of the row, and then begin double knitting the beginning of the next row, and then pick up again with middle row 3. So I'm going to pause here, do that bit of double knitting, and then pick up again with that next middle row. Alright, now I've finished that bit of double knitting, and you can see we've got the beginnings of this row started with the double knitting, and for the previous row you can see where we've just carried that F colored yarn across, taking care not to make it too tight so that it doesn't, cause the fabric to be pinched. This is going to be a really easy row that we'll do by simply purling 5 times while we carry our F strand in the front. So purl, 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 purl. That's it. Then we resume double knitting, which will start with the F strand, taking care to leave it loose enough that it doesn't pinch the fabric. I'm going to pause the camera here while I do the double knitting to the end of this row, and then back up to where we'll resume doing the top row of our 5-stitch wide sucker. Alright, now I have finished doing that bit of double knitting that gets us up to the beginning of the top row of the 5-stitch wide sucker. So it looks like this on the B side, and like this on the F side. This is the row where we sort of pull it all together and turn the weird long stitches into the sucker. But first, we knit 2 stitches with our B color. Once we have those 3 B side stitches all next to each other, we pull our yarn out of the way. We take our stitches that are on the cabling needle and we slip them onto the left needle. We're going to do the beginnings of a purl stitch into all 5 of these at once. Just trying to purl all 5 of them together. So put your needle through them all together as if to purl. Wrap your yarn around the needle and pull that stitch through, but don't slip those 5 stitches off the needle. Leave them there while you wrap the yarn around the needle from back to front, and you pull that yarn over to create a second stitch. And then we do that not quite a full purl 5 together stitch that we did again. So through all 5 stitches, wrap the yarn around the needle, pull it through, but don't slide it off. And again, we wrap the yarn back to the front, giving us 4 stitches, and then finally we purl all 5 of them together for real this time, slipping them off the needle, just like that. Then we knit these 3 B-side stitches all together, or rather each of them in turn. So we have a run of those 3 B-side stitches next to each other, and then we simply finish double knitting the row in the usual manner. Giving us a piece that looks like this. Alright, now I've done the double knitting. That brings us back to the final row for the the 5 stitch wide sucker, the above row. I've double knitted the first 5 stitches in the usual way, of course, and then we're going to slip these 2 B stitches onto our cabling needle so that we can so that we can restore that alternating F side B side pattern. So I'm going to slip them on this way so it's easier to slip them off, one at a time. Simply slipping them onto our cabling needle and to the back of the piece. We have this run of 5 F-side stitches that we put on. We're just going to take that first one and knit into it. Having done that, we'll take the rightmost stitch that we slipped off onto our cabling needle and put it back onto the left knitting needle, keeping the other one to the back of the piece. And then we simply purl it. Then we knit the next stitch, and then we take the final stitch from the cabling needle and slip that onto the left needle so that we've got an orange stitch that we can purl into between our 2 F stitches, or 2 yellow ones right there. So we purl, and then we knit, and that leaves us with 2 F color stitches next to each other and one on the right needle. So to maintain that alternating pattern, we slip them onto our cabling needle and off of the left needle, holding them to the front of the piece. And then we purl. Then we take that first rightmost F stitch that we held out of the way, slip it back onto the F needle, knit into it, purl the next one, and then take that last stitch from the cabling needle back onto the left needle so that we can knit it. And then we simply double knit to the end of the row in the usual way. But as you can see, that leaves us with a cute little spiral of yarn that forms a sucker for our tentacle.